make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. Put a square peg in.
Hello and welcome to Wrestle Radio Australia presents Making Chicken Salad, the podcast where I, Lachlan Albert, speak with Todd Eastman of Wrestle Radio Australia about what's going on in international wrestling over the past fortnight. Todd, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, mate. Mate, you're Wrestle Radio Australia too now, all right? It's not Todd from Wrestle. Like,
you are Todd and you're from Wrestle Radio Australia, right?
True. Yeah,
I'm Lachlan from Wrestle Radio Australia and you're Todd from Wrestle Radio Australia.
We're in it together now, brother. I hate to say that to you.
We'll nail this intro soon. Anyway.
I'll eventually give you, like, the passwords to socials, but until, probationary period.
That's right. I'll prove that I'm responsible first.
Yeah, don't worry about that. The shit I tweet.
Well, we've got a lot to get into. Let's not waste any more time. I think we're going to hit the biggest news first. AEW Rampage happened just the other night. CM Punk is back in wrestling. Showed up on AEW Rampage, very start of the show in Chicago, announced that he is back. He is going to be on Dynamite, on Rampage. He's going to be appearing at the pay-per-views. And, yeah, well done on the sweatband.
You didn't pop it off for the sweatband. It was useless gimmick. Keep going.
So, yeah, I'm ignoring it then. So Punk is going to be on AEW programming going forward, starting at All Out. He will be facing Darby Allin. So that's in a week's time from us recording. What's your take on the situation? You excited to see Punk back?
Yeah, it was an amazing moment, an amazing promo, the whole deal. The fact that everyone knew that Tony was going to spring the money for the song. There was no real doubt.
Personality. Yeah. It was always going to be that.
There was no real doubt in that. And then doing the whole ice cream thing, like giving out the ice cream.
Yeah, so anyone who doesn't know, every person who was in attendance at the venue got a CM Punk ice cream bar on the way out. So, and visually, they're using all of those, trappings that Punk's always used. The red stars from the Chicago flag, the crossed taped fists with the red X's. It's all very classic CM Punk. We know who he is and we're getting Punk. I mean, it was obviously a great promo. The man is fantastic at getting in the ring and connecting with fans. That's always been his greatest strength. I think that's why things like the Summer of Punk worked so well, is it's just about a connection with fans, about him being, a genuine person. I missed a lot of Punk, so I got back into wrestling 7 years ago, to the day. So leading up to the Summerslam where Daniel Bryan beat John Cena. So I caught about 6 months of the tail end of Punk's WWE career. So
really? Wow.
Yeah. So I've gone back and watched, and I kept, watched occasional WrestleManias before that, and I knew Punk, and I've gone back and watched stuff since, and definitely a lot of talent there, but being disconnected from that, not having that sense of seeing him when he is something that's huge. I understand why everyone loves Punk, but for me, this is going to be, I will want to see if he can still work. I don't know if, he's had 7 years off and hasn't worked a match. So for me, it's going to be really important to see this Darby Allin match and go, am I excited week to week to tune in and see what this guy is still doing in the ring? Or is he, 40-something years old and ring rusted?
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing, and in the press conference afterwards with Tony, he was like, I haven't been really doing anything to get into shape, and it's just enough that I don't look overly fat, sort of thing. But he's been filming heels for the past X amount of months. So he's been in a wrestling ring and he's been doing stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of working the crowd there, because he's been doing stuff. He's probably been one of the guys that was coaching Stephen Amell into
almost definitely
for that role. So it's not like the guy's been sitting around doing nothing.
That's fair. And speaking of, like I said, I think he's always been good in the ring, but I think his strength was connecting with the fans, telling a story, and that's a muscle that is hard to lose.
Yeah,
Undertaker was still able to tell a story at the last few WrestleManias that he was wrestling at. You can say, physically, how good is he in the ring? Not all there, but he still knew how to tell a story. So I think that if Punk Punk can work better than Taker can, I'm sure. So
well, let's face it. His first match in, he's got
he's got Darby.
He's got an Uber cruiserweight, so he'll be able to lift him and all of that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And, we know that Darby Allin can work a hell of a match. He not one of those guys that we think about, being able to wrestle a mop. But I think that he's exciting enough with things that he just does that it'll be a good match kind of regardless of what Punk is able to pull out. But hopefully we do see a CM Punk who is ready to wrestle and ready to, really get in the ring.
I'm more upset because I've actually got an original CM Punk Money in the Bank t-shirt. Like it's the stuff that wasn't sold on WWE.com. I had to go into an auction to get it because it's got the date on the back. And now I have to get this one.
You got to get the I was there.
Yeah, but the price for those things already on eBay is astronomical. So it's the only thing I'm sort of upset about. But what do you think? The question I've got for you is, like, he's got this first match against Darby Allin, and that's awesome. It's face versus face. And who do you see going over in this thing?
I can't see a world. I cannot see a world where CM Punk returning to wrestling after 7 years in Chicago does not go over. I do not see the possibility of Darby Allin winning this match. And that's really unfortunate because it means that, because I think Darby's got insane main event potential in the future. Yeah. And his first match with this amount of hype is presumably going to be a loss.
Yeah.
So I don't see it happening another way.
So would you have put someone else in that spot for his foot? Like, this is nothing against Darby, by the way, because Darby's an amazing worker. Would you put sort of like a medium to higher level a heel in there for Punk to get a credible win over, which wouldn't really have taken away from the other person?
Look, I'm not a booker, right? And so I don't know what I'm doing, but the person that springs to mind when you're saying that is Lance Archer, right?
Yeah.
Is like, do you put Punk against someone like Lance Archer? Because, there's other options. There's MJF. I definitely wouldn't put him against MJF. No. You don't want either of those people losing. But like someone like Lance Archer could take the loss and it won't be the end of the world. He'll still look strong. He's a heel, so the fans will want to boo him and cheer for Punk. But I think that Punk returning is not a storyline the way we think of heel face storylines.
No.
Right?
And
we've talked before about shades of grey we've talked before about how these shades of grey don't always work, but at the same time, I think that this is not going to be a story of, Punk has to overcome a bad guy. It's a story of Punk's back. Let's see a good, respectful match where we see how he can go.
And that's the other thing. Like, is Darby going to get booed the shit out of in Chicago because it's, do you know what I mean? There's a real chance that could happen.
There is. But I think this is, and I think they've nailed it. I think the fans love Darby. There's not many people who don't love Darby Allin. And I think having Sting in the corner enhances that. And Punk is there. Everyone is just going to be excited to see this match. I don't think there's going to be any booing, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. Is that what you see coming?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know. Like,
it's a possibility. It is a possibility.
Like, because you saw the reception for Punk.
Oh, it was insane.
And there's no way that could match. I mean, look, for an example, and this is probably a bad example. Look at Hogan and Rock at WrestleMania. Like, for a couple of minutes there, they started booing The Rock during that match when he was getting a bit of shine on Hogan because they just wanted Hogan to be a good guy. And that was when Hogan was a dyed-in-the-wool heel. When he went into it, the crowd just wanted him to be the babyface. They missed him. But I think
that, and this will sound insane, I think the fans are excited to see Punk take a couple of hits because that's what's going to prove that he's still got it, is to take a licking and keep on ticking, And Hogan can still get in the ring and throw, and we'll talk about some old fellas getting in the ring and throwing shots later in this episode. But, it's much easier to throw moves and make those shots than it is to take them. And so I think the fans will actually be excited to see Darby lay into Punk a little bit. But again, I'm not from Chicago. I don't have that, diehard love for CM Punk that a lot of these people do. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, and it'll be interesting to see what they've got. They've got what, 3-4 shows in between now and the pay-per-view. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him in that interim. If he just does that one Dynamite, the next week's Dynamite, when they come out, maybe they have some sort of an interaction or something like that. Or
you're not wasting CM Punk's promo ability by not having him show up on those shows in the lead.
Yeah. Well, they already announced that he's going to be at next week's show, so he's going to be there.
Yeah, I think you do some big interactions. You maybe tease potential matches down the line. Maybe you have him bump into MJF and we get a tease for the possibility of that down the line, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot to be excited about there.
Yeah. So here's a question I've got to ask you before we go to the next story, right?
Sure.
He was debuting on this Dynamite, this Rampage. Everybody pretty much knew that this was happening. It's going to be a massive ratings thing, right? Who were the other matches on that card?
I mean, I can tell you because I watched the episode, but I think that's a segment that got ratings, not a show that got ratings.
Yeah, then this is my, if I was Tony Khan or whoever was booking that show, I wouldn't have had Private Party and the Jurassic
Express.
If anything, I would have had Jurassic Express and Lucha Bros, or just something like that, something big. And there's no way.
Jurassic Express Private Party was a great match. Anyone who stuck around and watched it would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, but and this is just maybe me, I wouldn't have let Jade Cargill buy a ticket to that show, let alone be on that show.
Come on, Todd.
No, I wouldn't. She is very green. That's why the match was so quick.
Yeah, she's green, but look at her.
Yeah, that's true. She's very green. The match was really quick, and it was against someone from Impact who she pretty much buried. Kira Hogan's Impact, so she's pretty much squashed someone in 5 minutes from a show that they've got a business relationship with. Do you know what I mean? Though, if anything, there is no way.
Yeah, but Todd, did you watch Diesel in the 90s?
Yeah.
Was he not doing the same thing?
Not to talent that they had working relationships with. Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean?
Sure, but from AEW's perspective, they don't have to protect Kira Hogan right now.
No,
right? If Impact is willing to give them someone knowing that it's going to be a squash match, then that's on Impact if they feel that talent's weakened. Jade is a future main eventer, and I don't think it's far in the future. I think she's got such a high ceiling. She's got the look, she's got the energy, she's got the it factor, she's got the in-ring performance. There's nothing missing there except experience.
She hasn't got the in-ring performance yet. She's very protected at the moment, which is fine.
Yeah, but what more do you want from a dominating giant?
To be better at what she does. This is what I'm like. If it was just me, Thunder Rosa would have been in that spot with another one of the girls that has been on, say, one of the darks that has really proven herself, sort of thing.
I'm not going to argue that. If there's only going to be one women's match on that show, I would rather it be a really good, high quality women's match. I would much rather, and they've got so many talented women on that card.
I would have had a Thunder Rosa, a Serena Deeb.
Is Chris Statlander healthy at the moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Throw her in there.
Well, she was a number one contender, so why wouldn't you put her there with somebody?
Yeah. Right.
That was my only real bugbear with it. I
agree, but I think Jade Cargill making those dominating performances is exactly what we need from her right now, and it's not taken up a huge chunk of the show. It took 5 minutes, including entrances. I don't think that's an issue.
Yeah, see, I because when I saw it, I went, well, Kira Hogan's on Impact. This should be a fairly they might give her a little something because she's a working relationship.
The show at least. I would have rearranged the show at least because I think that the main event was, from my perspective, a waste of time.
Yeah.
Right? Who's winning that match?
Yeah,
who's winning John Moxley versus a guy who's there?
Then you're
right?
going to say, yeah.
John, that is there to be. That is for Moxley what the Jade Cargill match was for Jade. Right?
But then
it was booked as a main event.
He gave him more than what he
yeah.
gave Darcy way more than what Kira Hogan got. And the thing is,
100%. But
Kira Hogan could have done a lot more too. There's like Kira Hogan's not a bad wrestler.
No. But anyway, that's
that was
discussion.
That was my only thing. Like they had all these eyes on the show. I would have put my absolute best people on that show. Not like I'm not saying like fucking like Jericho and Moxley and I'm not saying that. No, I'm just saying.
But if you say that there was really 3 big matches on that show, there was Jungle Boy Jurassic Express, there was Jade versus Kira, and there was Moxley in the main event, and 2 of them are squash matches. Real, not that it was a squash, but
not
a
showcase
squash.
Yeah,
no,
hers was definitely.
Hers was a squash.
Yeah,
but I would have at least put Jurassic Express in the main event. I think Jungle Boy is a future star, and
not only that,
getting eyes on him is money.
But they're clearly pointing towards that it's going to be Jurassic Express and Young Bucks in a cage.
Absolutely.
So you'd think they might have done that, but but there was no way they couldn't have not opened that show with CM Punk because the whole show would have been.
Otherwise, it ruins the rest of the show. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would have just been CM Punk chants all the way through to
Punk chants for the whole show.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree, at least on that front. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Speaking of returns, SummerSlam is only a few hours past now, and we had 2 big returns on that show. Both Becky Lynch and Brock Lesnar returned to face down champions. We had Becky Lynch returning and in an impromptu SmackDown Women's Championship match, becoming the new champion. And then at the end of the show, we had Lesnar staring down with Roman Reigns. Now, let's talk about Lesnar Reigns, first of all. I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm just going to step in and say, I do not want to see this match again. I don't care. We saw it so many. It main evented how many WrestleManias? Was it 3? It feels like it was 3. I do not care about seeing Roman Reigns fight Brock Lesnar again. And I feel like they have exhausted the field for Roman Reigns so thoroughly that this is all we've got left who seems like a valid contender for the title. I know that he's a draw. I know that I love the new look for Lesnar. He looks like he's been living in the forest eating small mammals for some
old thick Kincaid.
Yeah, that's that's right. But yeah, I don't care. I think Roman's been doing great work, and I would love to see someone who's not Brock as an opponent for him.
What
do you think?
What I like about it is it's the Heyman dynamic. That's what
that's interesting.
That's what I think is going to be the thread that goes through until Extreme Rules or whatever. But then, like, I also saw some
shocking that you as a manager, Todd, are interested in what happens with Paul Heyman, right?
But also, I saw there was some footage post show that a fan put up of Brock Lesnar beating the shit out of John Cena.
Wow, that's very, very interesting.
So if it's a Cena, Lesnar, Reigns triple threat at Extreme Rules, then I'm excited. I'm like really excited because you've never actually seen the 3 of them mix it in.
No, but Todd, who wins that match?
Roman, of course. Roman 100% wins that match.
There's no other possibility.
No.
There's no other possibility. And I understand why Lesnar and Cena are the guys we're putting against Roman, because they feel like they're strong enough to potentially take him down. But realistically, we know they're not taking him down. So I would rather see someone who has the story of this underdog could just get that upset and take the title, rather than we know these people are going to be off to either film a movie or a TV series or go live in a wood cabin and hunt deer. Because that's what they're going to do.
I actually 100% expected Lesnar to run in on the Goldberg match. When Lashley was beating on Goldberg at the end, I was so expecting to hear that music hit. But obviously they must be extending that out to Extreme Rules because of the way he
Yeah.
attacked the sun and all of that sort of jazz. Because I was sitting there talking with Welshie from Turnbuckle at the time, and both of us were just like, when's Lesnar's music going to hit? Because it just looks set up for that. And
yeah, it's like it happened a match late.
Yeah. And also, it was like, I half think that Goldberg had a legit knee injury, but it was the other knee.
Right.
Because if you go back and watch that match again, when they do that jackhammer spot, Goldberg lands and really like looks like that the knee with the smaller knee pad buckles and he limps for like a second.
So there may be something pre-existing there that we're
Where they had to cut
giving
it
him a
short
knee
or-
injury so that we're working around a knee injury or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's usually like in wrestling, pulling back the curtains a bit, if you've got an injury of some description, they will usually work on the other side of that injury. So if I've got a bad left knee and
We'll work your right knee.
you want to take me out, so I'm out for a while, you work the other knee because you just don't want to injure the other guy's knee.
You don't
by accident.
you don't want to risk hitting that already injured spot and doing
Yeah.
some real damage.
Yeah.
So moving over to the women's side, let's talk about Becky Lynch returning.
Controversial.
Controversial. And look, I'm going to get straight into it. I know that I've been a bit negative so far about SummerSlam, but this made me angry. This made me angry, Todd. This made me real mad because it seemed obvious that Sasha wasn't going to be in this match because she hasn't been anywhere for the past few weeks.
I hear rumors she's got the vid.
Right. Possible. But if they're selling us on a rematch of one of my favorite matches from the past year, which is that WrestleMania match between Sasha and Belair, that match was phenomenal. Belair's been doing amazing work for the past 6 months. I think she's been absolutely fantastic. I think she's grabbed that main roster spot with both hands. She's done an amazing job working without crowds. She's done a great job working with the crowds now that they're back. And then Lynch comes out, and as much as I love seeing Becky Lynch back, a forearm and an uranagi, and the title is off Belair. And I don't know after we see, like, if you go back and watch that Sasha Banks Belair match at WrestleMania and watch the punishment that Belair survives to earn that title, it's superhuman. And 2 moves have the title come off it. And I don't feel great about it. And if it was, part of this is that Lynch isn't Goldberg, right?
No.
If they were known devastating moves by someone who hits massive high impact moves, that's a different story. But Becky Lynch has never been that. She's a submission wrestler mostly, right? Her finisher has traditionally been an armbar. And suddenly she's got a slam that can knock someone out in 24 seconds. It's wild to me.
It's a manhandle slam. That's what it was called.
The manhandle slam. That's right. Sorry to be ranting there, but
no.
Be angry.
Oh, I like it. It's good. Here's my thing for it though, and this is just something like from a booking perspective, I can see why they've done this because they've got the whole thing of now, like coming back, she's got the plausibility of like the crowd or just saying, look, I didn't prepare for Becky Lynch before. I didn't know this was happening. Yeah. I had no idea. Yeah, I accepted the challenge and she beat me. She beat me.
And
she's not going to do it again.
You can argue that Lynch has been at home with the baby watching Belair matches, knowing that she's the SmackDown Women's Champ and studying for months.
Yeah. And also it's also the fact that like they've done the whole thing like you beat me. You won't do it again because I know it's you. I know I'm prepared for you now. You're not going to beat me. And like you see all these people going, oh, they've completely buried her. I can't believe this. They keep me. Did McGregor bury Aldo when he beat her in 13 seconds?
I don't think it's a burial. I 100% agree with you there. But
like stuff can happen. Like matches, and this is like more things like this should happen. Like more things like like quick victories and just like roll up victories and
100%
should happen more, but they don't. And we're like, this is a microcosm of this.
The problem for me, Todd,
Yep.
And sorry to cut you off here,
No,
but
go for it.
what we keep talking about, and what I think it keeps coming back to, and we talked about it already, is that willing suspension of disbelief. I cannot suspend my disbelief that Cena is going to take the title off Reigns, because I know that he's got to go film something.
Well,
in the same way,
the worst part about that is they had this whole angle. It was going really well until the last minute of SmackDown, where he goes, "Well, if you beat me, I will leave the WWE." I was like, "Well, he's not fucking losing it.
He's
now,
gone.
is he?" I could say that, like, I could convince myself John could possibly win it for a month, and then lose it back to Roman at Extreme Rules. Like and many people had, until that happened, and convinced themselves they're going to give John the title, because then he can go to all these press events as the WWE champion, like the Universal Champion shows off the belt. That was something that could plausibly happen, because if he's going to come back to drop it to Roman in a month, when Roman said, "I'm leaving if you beat me," straight away, it's like, nah, he's no way he's beating.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Is that if you expect me to believe that Bianca can survive Sasha Banks to become the women's champion, and then you expect me to believe 6 months later that one slam is enough to keep her down for 3, it doesn't work in my brain, and it makes me stop believing that this is what's happening.
See, I can believe in flash knockouts. I just can.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
That's like from years ago. And even when you watch that, it happened on NXT.
Yeah, but WWE hasn't been telling us that story. They haven't been telling us that a move can knock someone out all of a sudden. What they've been telling us is, look at the resilience of these people. They take a finisher, and because it's WrestleMania, they kick out. They're not telling us, oh, in a second you can get knocked out and that leads to the win. Maybe they should be telling us that.
That was one thing that, like, and I tweeted it. I was in it because I was watching SummerSlam with my wife, because she'll watch it when Rhea's on, because she's known Demi for years. And she's like, "Oh, how come all of these guys like lie down heaps after these big moves?" And I'm like, "Well, that's selling." I'm like, it's a big part of wrestling. She goes, "Well, why do the other guys in the other show not do that?" Well, that's a very good question, baby.
Very interesting.
It's a very good question, baby. And this is from
always interesting to get that perspective.
That's someone who doesn't watch wrestling. That's what I mean. It's like, that's a very good question. But I guess, like, people are starting to get conditioned to the point of people can run through brick walls. And they look it's the fact, like Dynamite last week, when Sting got put through a table and stood straight back up. I'm like, that's a 63-year-old dude. He should maybe grab his back a little bit.
I would love to see more matches end off a clothesline because someone's been flash knocked out.
Yeah.
And that's a story we can tell, is that, you know, a match can end at any moment. You have to be on your guard at all times. And the best wrestlers are the ones who are prepared for those moves at any moment and prepared to dish them out at any moment and take advantage when they do.
That's 100% right.
You know, anyway, that's my view on what we should have. But
yeah.
And speaking of, you know, potentially taking new directions with wrestling, let's talk about NXT for a minute. So there's some changes happening, is what we've heard. A lot of those cuts that happened that we talked about previously were calls made by Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, John Laurinaitis, not Triple H, who's you know, traditionally had control of that brand. The quote that we heard was, "No more midgets, no one's starting in their 30s. They want people who can be box office attractions and main characters." Yeah. So it sounds like we got a new direction, a bit of a rebrand happening for NXT. How do you think this is going to go for the yellow brand?
They basically want to take it back to when it was FCW, is the way I read it anyway.
That was my instinct as well, was, sounds like FCW.
Yeah. So from what they're not worried about ratings for a while. I don't think they have been for a little while anyway. But it's sort of like it said, like he said there, they want people that can be main characters and box office attractions, because you can always get those bit players.
Well, let's think about this. If we go back to who were those people where NXT coming out of FCW, who did we get out of that? We got the original incarnation of the Wyatt family. We got the Shield. We got, you know, Big E Langston. These are the early champions we're looking at.
That's
people
that's NXT. That's not FCW. FCW
No,
had Sheamus. They had, I can't say Cesaro because he was already there.
No, and they had Batista when he was a vampire and whatever you want.
That's OVW.
The prototype. Oh, I just cannot keep track of this, man.
Now you're looking at a guy that has
all too much for my little
just
brain.
inside. This is what I have like holding up my microphone.
Wow, there you go. There you go.
So, like,
Yeah,
this is why I know this dumb shit.
If I'm thinking back to like earlier NXT, I tend to think of it as being more developmental. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they'd get a guy like Bo Dallas and they'd go, "This is our champion because we can see him on WWE TV." Whereas, recently it's been more guys in that indie mold.
But also too, like
Kyle O'Reillys of the world.
You have a look at that. Like that Bo Dallas character was over huge.
Massive.
In that NXT environment. They did try the same thing when he went to WWE and it just didn't work. So they've got to, maybe they have to change something.
That's a recurring story.
Yeah.
That the NXT audience is not the WWE audience.
No.
We were talking before we started recording about, what gets kind of held onto by the fans. And, if you go back and look at, the Vaudevillains was something that was massively over in NXT that did not translate at all to the main roster.
No.
And the main roster is a totally different environment to AEW, to anything else. We're talking about, you were saying before, you heard someone saying like, oh, WWE's making terrible choices, but they've got how many viewers every week?
Yeah.
How many people are tuning in again and again to watch just what's on that main roster? Compare that to NXT. So at the end of the day, Vince McMahon knows how to put on a wrestling show that gets eyes on it.
Yeah. And he's more like, I know that they talk about the demo as an older demo, but that older demo all have kids.
Yep.
And they're watching the show. Because when I look in a crowd at Dynamite, there's not a lot of diversity in that crowd. Like age.
It's a lot of 25 to 35-year-old white men.
Yeah, well, that's great for like that's a key demo, and that's what spends the money. The kids are watching WWE. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like it's just Vince has targeted those two audiences, and like I completely sort of like I agree in some respect with. Like, I think Triple H was on the right thing when he was doing what he was doing. But NXT back then was very much like, this is WWE indie. So when those guys went from NXT to main roster, that's when the translation got lost. Because that indie doesn't work. Just for some reason, does not translate to the bigger screens, the bigger...
No, and for me, there was always talk of NXT as the developmental brand. But what were they developing? Right? Yeah. And I would say that in the last few years, they weren't developing stars that would immediately transfer over to the WWE main roster. They were making an indie show for a large audience.
Yeah.
And that's not what NXT was designed to be. It was good and I loved watching it, but that's not the purpose of the thing from the corporate entity.
Yeah. Well, like AEW is basically super indie. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah.
If all the indies got together and formed a Voltron, that would be AEW. And that works for that core, like that core audience of 1.1 mil to like 700 there, because that's basically where their ratings sort of range from.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see if, and I know it's the move the needle thing. It'll be interesting to see if bringing these guys like the Punks, the Daniel Bryans, the Malachis, if that changes, if that grows them, and if that does grow them, is that really the AEW style anymore? Do you know what I mean? Are they moving more towards a WWE style?
You've just said something interesting there, Todd, and I haven't put this on our run sheet, but I wanted to spring something on you. I wanted to ask you a question. We talked, last time we were here, we talked about how WWE had an unsustainable amount of talent on their roster. Too many people for the amount of product that they were putting out. Last night, I went on to the roster pages for WWE and AEW. I counted up what I considered to be active roster members, right? AEW has a total of 102 active roster members. WWE has 166. Those are both fairly big numbers. If you start to add in TV time, now I'm not counting what's on the internet, I am just counting main brands. So let's count AEW Dynamite and Rampage, and then WWE main brands. We're looking at, 3 hours of TV time for AEW versus, depending on how you count, 7 to 9 hours of WWE TV.
Yeah, you got what, 2 hours of SmackDown? Is it 2 hours of NXT?
3 of Raw.
3 of Raw.
2 of NXT.
Yeah.
You can argue that there's an hour of NXT UK. You can argue that there's an hour of 205 Live.
But then that's almost like YouTube shows. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Well,
let's
take that argument then. How long does AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation go for?
It ranges.
It does range. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, they don't have a set, like, we're here for the next hour. It's like, we're here for until we get our 27 matches off.
Yep, that's exactly. So I had a look. I reckon that they sit somewhere in about an hour each on average. They have ones that go up to 2. They have a lot that are around that 45-minute mark.
I would
call them an hour.
I would have sat around the 90-minute mark for what I see, because they usually go for like an hour and a half.
Let's say 90 minutes then, right? That gives AEW a total of 6 hours programming a week. It gives WWE 10, almost double, right? AEW has a little over 100. WWE has a little over 160. That is not double.
No.
Right? AEW per hour of programming has way more people than WWE does. And we're talking about WWE having an unsustainable roster. What does that mean for AEW?
Well, if you remember, I said that last week. What's going to happen to all these young guys when all these people that they have to get on, like your Malakais, your Miros, we've got to get on them because they're our high-paid guys. Yeah. Like, for an example, FTR have had 4, 5, maybe 6 matches this year. That's it. And they haven't all been
huge signing.
And they haven't all been tag team matches. They've been like 6-mans, and there's been the Stadium Stampede and the bloody not war games. And do you know what I mean? It's like they've got all this talent and they've got all this time.
And then notably, when I counted those numbers, I didn't include CM Punk because I didn't count him as an active roster member. He hadn't had a match yet. Also didn't count Big Show, who's now going to be having a match coming up, right? So not only is that number already large with a lot of big names, we've got big names who aren't even in that list who are going to be taking up big portions of that time.
Plus, they always bring in the occasional New Japan guy and the occasional Impact guy. And like, so those guys that have just come into, and like all their dark shows, like not everyone that's on that show are contracted wrestlers. All the enhancement talents are from whatever that area is. So that's just, and
there's still guys and there's still men and women out there who feel like they are natural fits for AEW that aren't on that roster. So one of my favorite wrestlers in the world is Matt Cross. The fact that guy is not signed to an AEW contract boggles my mind. It feels like you couldn't have a more perfect fit.
Yeah, but he's with the MLW now, and they're starting up that Lucha.
Only just recently, though.
Azteca Underground. That's what it's called.
Which, I mean, I'm going to hold off on that one till we see more of it, because I am unbelievably... Lucha Underground was my thing, so...
it's Conan's running it up, because I was listening to X-Park's podcast last week, and he had Conan on there, and they were talking a bit about it. So,
well, speaking of Conan, that sounds like an excuse to jump around our schedule. He was on Triple Mania about 2 weeks ago now, because we've got this fortnightly schedule. It's going a little bit back, but he was involved in not the main event, the semi-main event, which was for the AAA Mega Championship between Kenny Omega and Andrade El Idolo, or Andrade, which we had Kenny retain. Big aspect of that was Kenny had Conan in his corner, and Andrade brought out Ric Flair, and the two men got involved. What was your feeling on that one, Todd?
I made it offhand remark to somebody, one of my mates, going, well, I'm glad that the WWE won't get the blame for when he, like, if something happens to him in the ring.
Yep. Because
that dude is, like, he nearly died a couple of years ago. And I know it's not like the plane crash or something, but
no, he was in hospital.
He's an old man.
He's an old man.
Like, I love the guy. Like, Ric Flair, like, like, I wear a Nature Boy jacket when I manage sometimes. I have, like, both types of the Nature Boy Dame Lillard shoes because I love wearing them. It's like,
but he is too old to be in the ring chopping people.
I think it's dangerous. And fair enough, he wants to do it till he dies. So it's like it's his decision. At the end of the day, it's
sure,
his
but
decision.
on your biggest show of the year, in the match for your biggest championship, between men who have put out multiple 5-star matches, Andrade and Omega should be having immaculate wrestling contests. And Flair is getting in the ring doing chops that look like, they wouldn't hurt a fly.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of the whole thing where, like, AEW pulled their creative control?
Yeah,
clause?
so this is the story we're hearing, is that AEW specifically asked AAA to change booking to keep Omega looking strong and not lose the championship to Andrade. Obviously, I think that, it makes sense for AEW to want him to have that title still. If the story AEW is telling, which is one we're going to talk about very soon, that Christian Cage is the man with Omega's number who can take a title off him, you don't also want Andrade taking a title off him.
Yeah.
And I think that the nonsense with Conan did allow, Omega to obviously look strong, hitting a one-winged angel on a chair for the finish that was insane. We know no one kicks out of a one-winged angel. That's fine. So to have a screwy finish where he hits that move and gets the win, Andrade still has a claim that if Conan wasn't there, he could have gotten the win. It'll be interesting going forward to see if the working relationships between companies deteriorates based on AEW wanting to tell their story and it interfering with the story AAA wants to tell.
Man, I tell you, if I was AAA, I would be pretty pissed. I mean, let's face it, they barely ever mention AAA on AEW TV, or that he's the champion.
No, he just comes out wearing the belt.
He comes out wearing the belt. They never, and sometimes he lets fucking, what's his name?
Nakazawa.
He lets him wear it sometimes, or the other belts. Do you know, like, if they want to do it, and like they would have known, AEW would have known a fair way out the booking that Kenny was going to drop the belt to El Idolo at Triple Mania. It's Triple Mania. Yep. That would be like saying, like, say back in the day, WCW had a working relationship with WWE, right? And then they had the WWE were having their WrestleMania, and like Hogan was going to drop the belt to The Rock. Let's just say that was the plan for the whole thing. And like Eric Bischoff rang him up a week to go and go, oh, look, we're taking another belt off like Hogan. So can you just change your booking now? So that's not your champion. Do you know what I mean? It puts like, I don't know how, I would imagine it puts AAA out tremendously. Them having
you have to imagine.
So
because especially with Omega working in America a lot of the time, they're not going to have their champion there all the time. Whereas Andrade potentially could have been there more. It's a difficult situation. Speaking of Triple Mania, I'm assuming you have no opinion on this, but I have a strong one, so I've put it on the run sheet. La Nueva Generation Dinamita has debuted on Triple Mania. They've allied with La Empresa to, seemingly form a strong heel faction. Any thoughts at all whatsoever on that one, Todd?
Yes. No.
All right, I'll tell you what the thoughts on that one are, then.
Please,
I can take control.
Please explain to me what these are, because I have, like, to pull the veil back, people, I don't get into lucha a hell of a lot. It's not that I don't hate it. It just doesn't float my boat, which is cool. Like flavors of ice cream. So
I'm more of a lucha guy. This is the type of stuff that I do enjoy watching. Basically, New Dynamite Generation is the English name of this faction. They were the Trios champion in CMLL, which is arguably the bigger of the two Mexican promotions. They were let go from their contract as champion within a week of Triple Mania. And within the same week have gone, debuted, run roughshod over the place. So yeah, imagine, some tag team from AEW gets released within a week, debuts at SummerSlam.
So it would be like the Shield, say.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and this is, one of those things that I'm uppity about, I feel really strongly that AAA has not paid enough attention to their trios division. Trios, 3-on-3 matches are a big part of that, Mexican wrestling tradition. And AAA's trios division has basically been ignored in favor of the tag team division because of the power of the Lucha Brothers as a draw. Lucha Brothers have been a huge draw. They've been leading the tag division in AAA, which means that one of the current trios champions was in a match for the tag team championships at Triple Mania, and the trios titles were not there. I think really strongly New Dynamite Generation might be the thing that gets AAA to look back at what trios wrestling means and potentially make that a more important division, which has me really excited.
So you had that, because I always, I don't know why, I always believed that AAA was the number one. So is it CMLL that are the number one promotion now in Mexico? It's
close. It's AAA definitely has more of a presence outside of Mexico. But I believe, and I could be wrong here, but I believe CMLL does get more fans into the building on a regular basis. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that. I tend to follow AAA because it's easier to get a hold of what's going on there. It's often difficult to see what's happening in CMLL. Whereas, Triple Mania goes out on whatever you want to watch it on.
Yeah. So going back to Omega, because now they're talking about having Omega versus, what's his name? There was another luchador that they were trying to point him towards dropping that belt to, and I can't remember what his name is.
Can't remember off the top of my head.
No. Well, that doesn't really help with the question I was going to ask.
No, that's exactly.
Because I was going to ask, then how often are these shows where they have, like, he defends the belt? And because he didn't, because you're going to say he's not going to drop that belt to Christian and All Out. He just won't. So so then are they just not going to have him drop that AAA belt until he drops the AEW belt? Do you know what I mean?
He is really not there all the time. It's like when Lesnar was the champion in WWE and he would just go a few months without showing up, and they would have to build other top storylines without the belt.
Except they see him on TV all the time going, well, how come he can wrestle there and not come here?
Mm-hmm. But, we'll see what happens as that develops over in AAA. But, he is wrestling consistently over in AEW. And speaking of AEW, bit of controversy going on at the moment with an episode of Dark featuring Max Caster. Max Caster with a rapping gimmick coming out and doing a rap that concerns Simone Biles' mental health and the Duke Lacrosse team controversy from many years back, and then into some suggestive rhymes, which garnered a bit of controversy. When asked about it, Tony Khan said that he wasn't aware of what was going on.
Sorry, I just quickly looked it up. El Hijo Vikingo, or Vikingo.
Oh, El Hijo Vikingo. So
that's who Omega. They're looking at Omega with now.
He's currently in a tag team with Laredo Kid, who I don't know how familiar you are with Laredo Kid, but I'll be speaking about him and Laredo Kid before the end of the show.
Okay, there you go. Well, so we'll bring that back
talking
up
about how amazing his performance was. We'll get that.
Okay, we'll go back to Max Caster because that's a developing story.
Max Caster. So the quote from Tony Khan is, "Last night on Dark, Max Caster's rap was terrible. I was not out there in the moment when he did it. It was not during Dynamite. I was out back when Max had said this rap. I had not heard it until last night, truthfully. In the editing process, it should have been caught. We deleted the episode and reposted it with that edited out, but it shouldn't have aired. Going forward, he will now be taking over the editing duties himself for Dark." I know we've spoken before. We are conflicted over whether that's the truth of the matter, over whether Tony Khan knew what was going out on the air. But what's the real story here? Is the story that Tony Khan doesn't know about these things that are going to be airing on the YouTube show? Is the story that casters had to go into sensitivity training because of this rap? What should we be taking from this story?
Well, I'm just gonna say, like, I know because I listen to this podcast, so I know like the whole thing of what TK said, and he literally goes, "Oh, normally I listen to everything he does before he goes out. We always clear it before he goes out. This is the one time I was away from the desk when he was out, and then I didn't see him when he was out there, so I didn't see it. So I didn't know until afterwards, and it got through editing. So, yeah, it was a terrible thing." He said, when somebody says something like that, which way would you lean towards the truthfulness of it?
Yeah, it's very suspicious, isn't it? That the one time he's away and doesn't get a chance to see or hear it, that's the time. It's despicable, frankly.
Yeah, honestly, I think they didn't think it was anything, and I think I've got a good idea that he knew exactly what Caster was going to say when he went out there. He didn't think it was a big deal. As soon as it blew up, it became a big deal, and he washed his hands of it.
I think, and this is my perspective on the situation, it's really easy to hear Duke Lacrosse team and, oh, there was a thing that happened in the area we're performing in 15 years ago that I'm going to reference. And you go, okay, sure. And then it goes out live and people on the internet go, now, like, if you read that story, I don't know if you remember it, Todd, or if you read up on it, it is not a pleasant tale. It's not the kind of thing that I personally think should be brought up in wrestling. The Simone Biles factor, we can also have that discussion about an athlete having a recent, mental health issue in the Olympics. That's a big story. But to bring up something that is, so fraught, I don't think that's appropriate at all. And I think that it should have been thought about a lot more.
Yeah, look, I agree completely with you, but in that case, didn't they get found not guilty of that? I can't remember. Like, I believe that's what happened, though.
It is, but the details of the story are
very okay. See, I don't know, and like, but that's just like, and people still.
It's regardless of the guilty verdict, we know for a fact that there was some very serious racial stuff going on there. There was some it's not the kind of thing that you want to be making light of. I think. Yeah,
100%. I agree with you completely, and it probably should have been caught before it went out on air. And then it probably should have been caught in the editing. Then, do you know what I mean? To then just go to the kid.
In fairness, right? Like, I didn't know this story before this thing happened. It, happened when I was in primary school. But when I heard about it and I went up and looked at the story, it seems to me if you have got an international wrestling program that's going out over the internet and someone's going to bring up something controversial, maybe just have someone check it beforehand before you go and let it loose on the world.
Yeah. And it's also the thing now where like people want people to be edgy until they're a little too edgy. and then they want to bring him all the way back to zero. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, but at the moment, like he's suspended. And then another rumor I heard is that when his tag partner wrestled on Dark, I think it was, they turned the crowd's noise down because the crowd were chanting for Max.
There you go.
Which is very,
very interesting. And,
So, and I heard that story that I told before from a very reliable source, which I will not say, but there's a very good chance that Tony knew exactly what he was going to say when he went out.
Well, let's
allegedly
move past that. But hearing that the people were chanting for Max is, that's very interesting. Speaking of people that there's maybe fan support for when they're not on the scene, let's say, Keith Lee has recently come online and spoken about his absence from the WWE scene recently. We heard a lot of rumors. There were legal fights over the copyright of his name. We also heard that there was maybe some arguments about how he was being booked. What he's come out and said is that he had COVID and it caused some very serious complications with his cardiovascular health. And on top of that, we know that Mia Yim, who has also been absent a little bit from television, contracted COVID while caring for him. So I think for me, and you tell me if this is where you're coming at this one from, Todd, this really is a reminder to us that there's lots of rumors. We hear all sorts of stories about wrestling, and you never know what the truth is.
Yeah, and that's also the thing, like, oh, why wouldn't he just come out and say it? Because he was probably afraid he might be dying.
Yeah.
And like,
absolutely.
It was all cool when when Brody Lee unfortunately passed, everyone's like, well, why didn't you tell us about it? Because it's none of our business.
We're not involved in these men's lives.
Like the cardiovascular thing, he said that he was like an enlarged heart. Like he had his heart was swelling. And that sort of thing is like, that will scare the shit out of you. That will scare the shit out of you. And you probably don't want to go on the internet going, oh, I've got a bit of an issue here where I have an enlarged heart. I might die. I don't know what's going on, but we'll keep you informed. It's none of your business. Do you know what I mean?
No, and when people have health problems, they need to focus on their health.
Exactly right.
And, coming out and talking online to millions of people about what's going on with your health, especially when it's from contracting a disease that there's, so many people out there who want to say that it's not real or that the government invented it to plant microchips in you. I can totally imagine not wanting to share that with the public if you're a public figure. That doesn't seem like the nicest way to spend your day while you're worried about your enlarged heart.
Yeah. And the good news is, though, he's back. He's been working a couple of shows, and maybe everyone's like, oh, why would you have him job? Because maybe they're just easing him back in. Yeah, the dude had an enlarged fucking heart. How many times you got to say this? Maybe not put him straight back into a full-time program where he's killing people, because you don't know in a month if hang on, I'm having complications, I've got to take another 6 months off. This is the same argument I had. This is years ago when Daniel Bryan would go off, he would get concussion and have to have a couple of months off. Yep. Then he would come back and I said, I can't remember what it was. It might have been on Wrestle Radio Australia with Josh, where I said, look, if I was WWE creative, I would not book him in a title program. I would not book him in anything really meaningful for at least 6 months, because you want to know how he is. You want to know how his health is, because you can't keep investing in something that just could go on for 6 months. And I know that's the nature of wrestling, but when there's someone who's more at a high risk of that, which is what Daniel Bryan was at the time, and COVID's really new, so we just don't know what's going to happen to people that have had it.
No, that's exactly right.
So anyway, I'm glad that he's back, and I'm glad that he's healthy.
Speaking of people who stole the show in NXT and their main roster presence, Adam Cole. Reports indicated that he hadn't yet made a decision about his plans to re-sign with WWE. We know that Cole and Kyle O'Reilly are going to finish off that feud on NXT TakeOver 36 with it's called a two out of three falls match. It's a 3 stages of hell match. Thank you very much.
Yes.
What's the situation with Adam Cole? We don't know. What do you think's going to come out of this?
Honestly, I hope he actually does re-sign with WWE, only for the fact of there's a real chance he'll get lost in the shuffle at the moment if he goes to AEW.
Absolutely.
Man, you've had CM Punk just debut. You'll have Bryan Danielson really soon debut. Like, no offense to Adam Cole, amazing wrestler, great on the microphone. Could very well get lost in a shuffle with those two debuting at the same time.
We just talked about how big the AEW roster is as well and how stacked it is.
Yes.
Right? And, we're talking about the Punks and the Bryans of the world. You've also got to compete with the Chris Jerichos of the world. And you've also got to compete with the Darby Allens and the Jungle Boys of the world who are up and coming, and the MJFs of the world and the Malachi Blacks. And there's so many people there that need that time in front of the fans. If I was Adam Cole, I would be looking at the payday that I'd be getting from WWE compared to AEW. And I would be thinking about where I'm going to be in a better long-term position.
At the moment, it's probably you've got a better chance to get a bit more of a look in. Look at that. They've just done WWE have just sort of elevated Damian Priest today at SummerSlam.
Giving him that US title.
Yeah. So I mean, I know this sounds silly. I think there's more chances at the moment, just because of what's the amount of people going into AEW and all of that sort of thing. There's would you rather be one of someone coming in at a later date, or would you rather come in a rush where you could get? It was like the Radicals when the Radicals signed with WWE. It was a massive story, but if they'd have come in at separate times, separately, they would have been really massive stories.
Guerrero debuting and Benoit debuting, and instead of this big crew.
Yeah.
And I also think that if you're Adam Cole, right? If you're WWE and you're looking at the people who are going over to AEW and the people who are watching AEW, if you want that market share, you need those indie names that you've already got a hold of to maintain those eyes on the product. And Adam Cole is a perfect one of those names that people who are watching AEW want to watch Adam Cole. So they'll watch WWE to see him.
Yeah. And honestly, he's probably got more of a strong bargaining position at the moment there than anywhere, because they could pay him, not necessarily pay him more money because Khan's got more money than God. But they can give him, if he goes, look, I want to be able to go on my Twitter and just on my Twitch and do my Twitch. And I know you've got a rule against it, but this is what I want. They go, okay, you can do
deal.
That. Yeah, deal. Fine.
And this is what I would think is, we're saying right now, imagine going over and trying to compete with space with Malachi Black and CM Punk and potentially Daniel Bryan. What's it look like in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, when maybe that's the length of deal you sign with WWE and there's no new big names, and a lot of those feuds in AEW that people are anticipating have happened, and AEW is looking for a new big draw card? Maybe that bargain looks much better.
Yeah, and let's face it, as many feuds as there are in AEW that can be had at the moment, they chew through them. They really do chew through them because of the way they book their TV. They book their TV like their pay-per-views, and their pay-per-views almost like their TVs. So it's sort of like they chew through those matchups.
Yeah.
And I would, if you were 100% right, I would probably wait 2 or 3 years, sign a 2-year contract with WWE and then see where you are, see where AEW is then, and just go, all right, Daniel Bryan's been there for 2 years. Punk's been there for 2 years. Now I'm coming. And now now you can focus everything on me.
And when you're new, that makes you the main event.
Yeah.
Because there's no doubt CM Punk's the main event. If you go over now, you are not main eventing ahead of CM Punk.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like,
Right.
that's a good question. At All Out, does Kenny and Christian go on as the main?
No, no, no. What are you talking about, Todd?
Yeah.
No, Kenny and Christian doesn't go on in the main event.
So
No.
is then
CM Punk is the main event.
So is AEW the most protected, important title in wrestling if it's not the main event of their biggest show of the year? Because All Out, what is it? All Out and what's the other one you would call? They're Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing.
Yeah. They're probably they're like WrestleManias and their SummerSlams, yeah?
Sure. What I would argue that you talk about it being the most protected title, sure, but I think CM Punk's return to wrestling after a 7-year absence is bigger than any title.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're putting that on in WWE, you would put it on last. If you're putting it on in AEW, you're putting it on last. If you're putting it on in the town hall down the road, you're putting it on last. It doesn't matter where you're putting it.
Before Inter, mate. It's before Inter.
Yeah. You want him to he can get home before dinner. That's fine.
Yeah, that's the deal he's got.
Yeah, that's right. So we have kind of hit on all of the big stories that we wanted to touch on. So let's go into the namesake for the podcast. We're talking chicken salad, chicken shit. I want to know, Todd, let's get a negative out of the way. Chicken shit for the week, for the fortnight. What's something that you've seen in the world of wrestling that you did not like?
Okay. There's two things. One is self-explanatory because we would have seen it. You would have seen it today. That dumbass spot with Morrison and Miz at SummerSlam. There was no point for it unless they made a shitload of money from advertising. Is what I'm thinking would have happened. That spot was just dumb. It was unneeded, especially when they had
really unnecessary.
And apparently they had some sort of thing where like the Las Vegas local council or whatever said they needed the show to be finished by 11. That's why there was a lot of shorter matches on the show tonight, which I didn't mind actually. I quite enjoyed the fact that they weren't over there. But that to me, that was shit. Like anyway, but the best thing about that, and I put it on Twitter, best thing about that was like Xavier Woods cosplaying as Scott Hall. That was the best part of that. And my second one is from AEW this past week from Dynamite, the finish to the Jericho MJF match.
You stole mine, Todd.
Yeah, it made no sense. Like, why would Jericho think it's cool to use a bat, but then I can't use the other thing that's outlawed to finish him?
Yeah, I'm willing to, if the ref's back is turned, I can use a weapon. But if the ref's back is turned, I can't use my finisher, which I'm not allowed to use. You're not allowed to use the bat, Chris.
Exactly. As soon as I saw it, I was just like, what in what world does that make any sense at all? Not to mention, like, I think, this is just personally, I think that the Judas effect is possibly
garbage.
The second worst finisher ever besides bloody
John Cena's lightning fist. Yeah.
That shit is, that's exactly.
I knew exactly what you were going to say before you said it. Because they're in that same class.
Yeah, the only time I've ever seen him hit it good was when he hit it off the top rope on Hoovy the other week.
It actually looked good.
That was the first time it looked good. I'm like, why doesn't he do that all the time? It looks great.
He's too old to be jumping off the top rope all the time like that, I think. I think that's what it comes down to.
Like, you count the amount of times that Jericho falls over after he hits that.
Yeah. And it did look good coming off the top.
Yeah. So that was my chicken shits for this week.
Yeah, my chicken shit for this week was also the finish to MJF Chris Jericho. I've really been enjoying the labors of Jericho. One of the things that I keep coming, and I know that I'm turning my negative into a positive here. One of the things that I think about AEW is, man, that video game's going to be good. They have an insane roster of talent, and they keep doing things that seem like they're custom built for video game scenarios. When you get to play through the video game version of the labors of Jericho, and it's like, you have to win the match this way.
Yeah.
That's going to be great fun. But why did they make Chris Jericho look like an absolute idiot who is willing to break the rules, but then not willing to break the rules in a different way?
Also, like with that labors, I thought it was completely ass backwards. Why wouldn't you have the death match as the second last labor? Why wouldn't you put him
Why
through
was that so early?
Why would you put him through a death match right before you're about to face him? That's what I would have done. Like, okay, you did all this shit. That's cool. Face the dude.
You survived your death match. Now, Juventud Guerrero, who's how many years old?
Yeah.
And then you get to verse my muscle man.
Yeah.
And then, no, you have Nick Gage cut into your opponent with a pizza cutter the night before he fights you, surely.
Yeah. You would think so. That was,
I liked the labors, but...
I like that.
But anyway.
Yes.
Let's move to chicken salad. What are things that you've really enjoyed this fortnight, Todd?
I enjoyed the fact that they actually put MJF over in that. I think that was needed. Like Jericho doesn't need that win. It was like, and he needs that sort of thing. And because mainly in AEW, they are very thin on the ground for actual heels. Like actual dyed-in-the-wool heels, they are very thin on the ground.
And MJF's phenomenal.
And he is. And hopefully that's like, as much as I like it, that's the end of those two. Let's move them completely away. Also today, Edge and Seth Rollins, brilliant match. That's the best match Edge has had since he's come back by a country mile. And
phenomenal.
Also Rollins and Reigns and Cena was really good as well, I thought.
Great match.
And I can't see, that's the thing, I can't wait for tomorrow for Walter and Ilya and Cole and O'Reilly and Samoa Joe and bloody, like, how long have we been waiting for Samoa Joe to wrestle again? We're going to see him wrestle.
So much good stuff coming.
That's what I'm looking forward to now, seeing that. Like, I know like the whole, like the 10-minute promo is sort of like overwhelmed the weekend, but at the end of the day, it's about wrestling.
Yep.
And these are matches that are great, in my opinion, that are going to be good.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of, I've got two as well. I want to put it, first of all, the women's match on SummerSlam, the triple threat, I thought was fantastic. We all knew that Nikki Cross, Nikki Ash could go, regardless of gimmick. We love Rhea. We know that Charlotte on that big stage is amazing. You have the three of them working together and making it a triple threat match, not throw this person out of the ring and then two people wrestle until one of them gets thrown out of the ring and the third person comes. No, there were three people in that ring doing moves. Loved it. Thought it was great.
I don't know if I would have put Charlotte over. I maybe would have put Rhea over, but it's a much of a muchness, really.
Well, we're biased towards Rhea. We know
100% biased towards.
But and here we go, me complaining again when I talk about the shit that I don't like, and I talk about the stuff that I do, and then I go to talk about the good stuff, and I'm like, I think they are speedrunning Charlotte towards that 14 titles number. Because what's this, number 12? That's all we're doing at the moment. We are just racing to get her to the number 14 so we can say she's got as many world championship reigns as her dad. That's the only reason I imagine that they're doing it, is they just need to buff up that number. But I thought the match was really good, and that's what's important.
Two chicken salads, because I'm a big wrestling shirt guy, as you know. The CM Punk shirt, and I love the new John Cena shirt.
Yep.
I loved it.
Fantastic. And then I'm gonna say another one that I loved was coming back to AAA. There was, and this is not going to be your style at all, Todd, but anyone who's watching or listening who likes that lucha style, the AAA Tag Team Championship match from Triple Mania was the Lucha Brothers versus Laredo Kid and Il Io del Vikingo and Brian Cage and Taurus. Wow, what a match. If you like that style of match, it is non-stop. You got Cage and Taurus are huge guys who are great bases for those little high flyers. Everyone knows how good the Lucha Brothers are at this point. I've been yelling about it for years, but everyone knows at this point. Laredo Kid and El Hijo del Vikingo are maybe the future of Lucha Libre. They are phenomenal. Seeing Vikingo do a running shooting star press off the barricade was ballistic. Such a good match. If you are into that style of match, check out that triple threat. And I think it was maybe a star maker for, even though the Lucha Brothers came out on top, Elio Del Vikingo looked amazing in it.
Yeah, that's why they were talking him up about. I think Conan's pushing for him and Kenny to move in
And-
to a match
and he's-
together.
I don't know a lot of details about him, but he seems to be a young guy who looks amazing in the ring and could be a great face of the company.
Oh, he's in another one too. If I'm talking chicken, another couple actually. If I'm talking chicken salad, Matt Cardona this weekend rocking up to GCW dressed as Vince McMahon in ECW. With the
So
ECW
good.
title.
The
Amazing.
skull cap going. Oh,
I haven't had
wonderful.
a chance to watch it yet. I started watching it and then I can't remember. I think my wife came in and it was the time to not watch wrestling anymore, Todd.
Got it.
So there's that, and there's also
I've been loving Cardona's work just in general. That guy is, man, that's a heel run. That is
Yeah.
a heel run.
yes, and it's good. That's what I like because he wants to be hated. That's what I like about it. That's what I like about it. And also, there'll be the double header of the ROH pay-per-views this weekend. I haven't had a chance to watch them, but I'm really keen on watching Matt Taven, the Matt Taven cage match, because
Well, there's been so much wrestling just over this weekend that, you know, is going to have to find a place to fit in.
yeah,
And that's, you know what? While we're spamming chicken salad, let me throw down one more. I love a 1 hour wrestling show. Thank you, AEW Rampage. A 1 hour wrestling show? Yes, I will watch it. Perfect.
Yes, that is true. That is very good. If you go on YouTube though, like going back to this Matt Taven thing, Ring of Honor actually put up, it's like a 22-minute video of the whole history of him and Vincent going through leading up to this cage match. And it was such a good watch because they showed him from the very start when he was in the kingdom. And then they showed all the little things that progressed in the feud that you possibly wouldn't have seen because of the RH not having crowds. So it was kind of hard to watch going through. And like after watching all that, I was just like, I am absolutely frothing for this cage match. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see it. And for those of you that don't know, for years, back in the day, I hated Matt Taven with a passion. Like he had go away heat for me. Like he had, it was a running gag with Josh Armour and I that when I said Matt Taven's name, I said it like Jerry Seinfeld said Newman. And when he, like the start of the Kingdom thing turned me around on him because I started seeing like that he was getting, like he was starting to get it, in my opinion. And now
It's definitely been a story of growth, right?
Yeah, 100%. I love the guy's work. I absolutely love it. I'm surprised that he hasn't gone somewhere else, but I'm also glad he hasn't because he's had a chance to do so much in ROH that he possibly wouldn't have got a chance to do if he'd have gone to an AEW or a WWE, just because they just don't have the time for these guys.
Oh.
A lot of these guys are like that now that are in Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is a really good show if you get a chance to watch it.
And it's also not hard to track down. I encourage anyone to, you know, get on there and see what they're doing. So with that, I think we've had, you know, it's been a huge couple of weeks in wrestling, so we've had a lot to talk about. But I want to thank everyone for having a listen to Making Chicken Salad. If you haven't already, make sure you
hang on. Wait, sorry. I put out a tweet for anyone for questions or anything, and we got one question. So we're growing.
We got a question?
We've got a question.
Right.
It's from, let me go onto it so I can, because I want to give the guy at the Bad Boy Chapo said, will there still be hype for CM Punk if and when they sign Daniel Bryan? Like they signed Andrade and was massive hype for him until they signed Malachi Black. Again, there was massive hype for him until rumors of Punk getting signed. So how long do you reckon the love affair will last? Will it die down somewhat significantly?
Yes. I mean, the argument that it's going to die down once there's a new hot person on the scene, there always is, right? There's always going to be a new hot person on the scene who is going to soak up a bit more of the love. I think the argument that, you know, Malachi Black doesn't still have that excitement on him, I don't think that's true at all. I think we haven't seen him recently for things to be excited about. But I think once we get Malachi Black in our faces again, people are still excited. I think that people will be excited about CM Punk as long as he keeps getting presented to us. I think the risk is that if you are getting all of those people exposed to the crowd, there's a lot of people that aren't getting that time. I think that's the risk for those people. What do you reckon, Todd?
I worry a little bit about, and not so much like the CM Punk thing, but I worry about someone like Buddy Matthews now. Because he's been, if you've watched any of those vignettes leading up to when he revealed what his new name was going to be, it's very tied in with Malachi Black. Very tied in. Which leads me to think he's maybe going to AEW, and will that get lost in the shuffle? Because if he's going
I think it may. He's so good that I want to say he is good enough that he can't get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
But we've seen great talent get lost before.
My worry is that he'll go into AEW and start a feud again with Malachi Black, and everyone's been like, well, we've just seen this.
Yeah.
Like, as good as the matches were, and I love the matches, but they might be like, oh, we've just seen this on WWE for the past. And Malachi won every one of these.
Yep.
And I can't see them having
I can't
Buddy
see
go
him
over.
coming out. No. But at the same time, I wonder if without the WWE looking over those matches, if they do seem very different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I just get worried that he might get lost in the shuffle over it, because he's not a huge name like these guys that are coming in.
No. And that's definitely more my concern than, a big person debuts and loses their shine when the new person debuts. My concern is more for those people that aren't the CM Punks and Daniel Bryans of the world, who do not have the, huge name behind them, and we were talking the other week about, hopefully Bronson goes to AEW, Bronson Reed. But right now, I don't know if I want Bronson Reed to show up in AEW when he will have to fight for space against much bigger names.
And also, what does AEW do when they start running out of these people that they can do these big pops for, these big arrivals? That's when the true, like I always said, when AEW started, the true test is when they realize that they've got to start doing these episodic TV. And now they've been doing that, but they've been doing it with the whole, like, every month or so. Oh my God, look who's here. Oh my God, look who's here. Eventually that's going to stop.
You can't rely on a debut every month.
No. And lately that's what they've been doing for the last X amount of months. That's what they've been doing. So
ready for me to tinfoil hat again, Todd?
Go for it, mate. I want to see when the rubber hits the road, though.
Yeah, I had another thought about that weird comment Vince made about giving AEW more talent. I'm wondering if, WWE is looking at AEW and going, just how much of Tony Khan's money can he spend before Dad decides you've had enough of this spending money and not making the profit back? I'm thinking maybe the WWE thinks, well, AEW can fill that roster as much as they like until they explode. Yeah,
until Shad Khan goes, hey, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, spend some of my inheritance, not all of the fucking thing. Like, I still have to live.
Not dead yet, Tony.
I've got to waste money on Fulham and Jacksonville. I can't be.
What am I going to do with these Jaguars?
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Anyway, so with that, but yeah, thank you for the question there. So if you are interested in, getting in touch with the show, asking more questions, follow Wrestle Radio Australia. If you haven't already, subscribe to Wrestle Radio Australia. It's free. You can do it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts from. If you do stop by Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating and review. Especially a 5-star review. It helps us get inside Maria's. It's really important, especially when we're starting a new podcast, to get those reviews, get it in front of more people, because the more we grow quickly, the more people we reach to grow quicker and quicker, and that's how an audience gets established. So if you like what we're doing, please let people know. Speaking of, Toddy.
Yes.
The Redbubble, mate. What's the address for that one?
Just go to redbubble.com and look up Wrestle Radio Australia. Anything you buy off there with the logo, Wrestle Radio Australia logo, the profits go to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, two charities that we really do support here at Wrestle Radio Australia. Like, I don't care about making money off this thing. That's why I'm not selling ball shavers. But yeah,
I don't know, mate. You don't want to nick that area.
Well, true. It's very true. But it's, the money just goes straight to them because I love the work that they do, especially Gotcha for Life. I love the work that those guys do. And anything we can do, if you know the history of the show, we've been affected here personally by mental illness and men's health issues. So that's why
that's across the team, me included. Those are really important charities that absolutely the support going to them makes a big difference. So if you want to support the show and support them at the same time, that's a fantastic way to do so.
Beautiful.
So with that, I also want to push one of the things I do, and that's Heat Sheet Mag. If you're interested in Queensland wrestling at the moment, Heat Sheet Mag, we try and write up everything that's going on, keep you abreast of all the companies, and make sure we're promoting local wrestling.
That's exactly right.
So with that, unless there's anything you wanted to add, Todd?
Our guest this week on the normal Wrestle Radio Australia show is Alex from Redneck Kung Fu. So a very interesting interview. It's the first interview I've actually ever had to actually censor the person. So
I can't wait to hear that one, man. I am ready for that.
Because Alex, like I know Alex, and she's a very private person. So the amount of times we had to go through like things to hide because she wants her face hidden, which is cool. So like the amount of like iterations we went through to try and hide the face was interesting. I ended up just putting a big redneck kung fu right over the middle of the screen.
Yeah, so, very nice. Very nice.
But yeah, it's a very good interview. And if you want to hear somebody sweat when you ask them to talk about Jim Cornette, when you know how they feel about them, come and join in.
And Redneck Kung Fu, incredible art. That's a great follow on Twitter, by the way, as well.
Yes, yeah. So she's basically one of the biggest Australian wrestling imports that no one talks about. Because she's done art for, you name it, in the American indie wrestling industry, and she's pretty much done art for them. She did art for all the Elite, Adam Cole, or Joey Janela, Nick Cage. She's done them for everybody, and nobody really knows about her.
The true goat of Queensland wrestling, really.
For sure.
Just phenomenal. Anyway, with that, thank you for joining us here on Making Chicken Salad. That's been Todd Eastman. I've been Lachlan Albert. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one.